The Chosen's most controversial, gut-wrenching, and surprising episode that they've ever done. It's not even a competition. It's finally here on streaming for everybody to watch within the comfort of your own home. So today we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to give you 5 details that you might have missed from this episode. We're going to unpack a lot of what happened here because there's some really cool Bible moments in here, as well as at the very end of the episode, obviously a very surprising twist that is not from the Bible. So without further ado, hello, my name is Eli Hollingsworth. Welcome back to Against the Current, The Chosen podcast, the biggest podcast about The Chosen. And let's go ahead and roll that intro.
The child needs you.
I said leave. What is needed? My repentance.
So first up, let's talk about the cold open with King David. At the start of this episode, The Chosen pulled one of its biggest tricks, which is using Old Testament stories to reflect upon the biblical truths that an extra biblical moment in the show is referring to. In this one, they chose to use King David's son dying. This passage comes directly from 2 Samuel 12, starting in the middle of verse 15. And the Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and he became sick. David therefore sought God on behalf of the child. And David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. On the 7th day the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he did not listen to us. How then can we say to him that the child is dead? He may do himself some harm. But when David saw that his servants were whispering together, David understood that the child was dead. And David said to his servants, Is the child dead? They said, He is dead. Then David arose from the earth, and washed and anointed himself, and changed his clothes. And he went into the house of the Lord, and worshipped. He then went to his own house, and when he asked, they set food for him, and he ate. Then his servants said to him, What is this thing that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but when the child died, you arose and ate food. He said, While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, Who knows whether the Lord will be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now he is dead. Why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will not return to me. This is a beautiful biblical truth that The Chosen pulled out of this Old Testament story to reflect what happens at the end of this episode. None of us can tell why God allows suffering. It's one of the biggest questions that's vexed theologians for thousands of years. But, as we know from the Old Testament, we know that God is sovereign, He is holy, He is just, and He is good, and everything He does, He has a specific intention for. And it's meant to maybe teach us a lesson, or get us to learn something in our own life that strengthens us and pushes us along in our walk. I love that The Chosen included this Bible scene, and it's beautiful, the artistry of how they're weaving together this story and connecting it with Old Testament stories that reveal capital T truth.
What happened on the trip to Caesarea Philippi?
Next up, let's talk about James and John and their mom, Salome. Shout out to Nina Leon, who plays Salome in The Chosen. She does a great job of portraying James and John's mother. She makes her heartwarming, funny, has her own personality, and she does a great job in this show. Now, this story comes directly from Matthew 20 and Mark 10, where The Chosen portrays James and John's mother, Salome, telling them to request that Jesus allows James and John to sit at his right and left hand. The Chosen portrays this as happening in the aftermath of Jesus changing Simon's name from Simon to Peter, kind of elevating him to be a leader of the group. James, John, and their mother Salome may get a little jealous at Jesus elevating Simon and not them. So in The Chosen, their mother asked them to ask Jesus for a simple request. Now there's 2 kind of conflicting versions of this story in the Bible. In Mark, it's James and John that come to Jesus and ask him. And in Matthew, we learn that it's actually Salome's request that Jesus elevates James and John. And we'll see the conclusion of this next episode with James and John finally going up to Jesus and asking him themselves. But this is a cool story that The Chosen decided to include and kind of showing the real humanness of James and John, and part of how really the disciples would have reacted to one of them getting their name changed and becoming a leader of sorts. Oh, what does this mean? How are they confused by that? And this is just one of those stories that's ripe for The Chosen to pick out and say, this is how it would have been. This is how real people would have acted and reacted to this kind of situation. And they use it as an opportunity to show more of the theme of this season, where Jesus is looking at his disciples, not really understanding what he's doing, what he's here for, what his mission is, and being disappointed by that and saddened by the fact that this is just part of how he has to die. He has to be crucified and resurrected because it's the only way for his disciples and the world to see that he is the Messiah, and for everyone to truly get an opportunity of salvation. Really cool story for The Chosen to insert here, and I can't wait to see how it all ties together next episode. Listen, I love to share my opinions and thoughts with you on The Chosen and everything that they do in each episode and outside of the episodes. But this is really a community, a family, right? We're all in this together. And the fun part about doing this is that I want to hear from you. So please leave a comment down below and share your thoughts with me on what you think about what happened in this episode. This episode was huge. Like I said, by far the most controversial episode that The Chosen has ever done. So I want to hear what your thoughts are, what you liked, what you didn't like. Let me know all of that fun stuff down below in the comments, what you think about what I said in this video. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Just let me know all of that in the comment section down below.
All to you, Pharisees, for you'll have the best seat in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplaces.
Take it back. Right now. You can't hear insulting words. Oh, I am just getting started.
And now let's talk about that epic argument with Jesus and the Pharisees outside of the synagogue. Now, after Jesus heals the blind man, he starts into his sermon that we find in Luke 11, starting in verse 29. When the crowds were increasing, he began to say, "This generation is an evil generation. It seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah." And as we continue down, this is the sermon that Jesus starts giving when he's preaching to these people. And the Pharisees hear about this blind man that was just healed that they're very upset about because it was unclean. So they come out and they hear Jesus preaching, which is where we get starting in verse 39. And the Lord said to him, "Now you Pharisees cleanse the outside of the cup and of the dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You fools! Did not he who made the outside make the inside also? But give as alms those things that are within, and behold, everything is clean for you." Now, like I mentioned, the catalyst that caused the Pharisees to come out and start questioning him was not him healing a blind man. In the Gospel of Luke, it's that Jesus dines with a Pharisee and then he doesn't wash his feet before dinner, and that's what causes this argument. But I could see how the Chosen would use the blind man as more of kind of a better narrative aspect, you know? But this scene, the tension building, the intensity in this argument that happens, and just this bubbling up of anger and everybody getting upset at what Jesus is saying is just really, really awesome and intricately built the way the Chosen builds this scene. It's similar to season 1, episode 6, with Jesus healing the man who is paralyzed. Just kind of all these different parties where the crowds are gathering around Jesus, and Quintus having already been mad at Gaius because he hasn't gotten these pilgrims out of Capernaum, and to where Quintus bubbles up and gets really, really angry at all of these crowds while Jesus is conversing with the Pharisees, who are very upset with him as well. It's just all so well done. You feel it. You feel it in your gut. You feel like you're on the edge of your seat waiting to see what's going to happen. And I'm glad that the Chosen decided to do what it does at the end of the episode, because there was literally no other way without, having some consequences for Jesus' actions to show the reality of what he's doing. But Jesus continues on through Luke 11, getting upset with the Pharisees and calling them out on a ton of stuff, as we see in the Gospel of Luke and as portrayed in The Chosen. But I think it's also important for us to remember that this isn't just for the Pharisees, right? This lesson that Jesus is saying of cleansing the outside of a cup, which on the inside is unclean, is something that all of us can learn from as Christians. We can go to church every Sunday. We can read our Bible every day. We can do all of these things that we can, do with our hands and accomplish by ourselves. But really, our salvation and our identity in Christ and in heaven is not something that any of us earned by doing something. It's something that we are given as a free gift of God's grace. So for us to try to pretend like we are better than anyone else is a really foolish thing to do, and something that makes us on the same level as any of these Pharisees. So a really important lesson that the Chosen portrayed here in season 4. Hey, real quick, I just want to mention that my podcast is available, linked down below in the description, where I talk about everything that happens in all of these Chosen episodes. If you want to hear my full thoughts, in depth, everything I liked and didn't like about If you want to hear my full thoughts, everything I love and don't love about every Chosen episode, you can go ahead and listen to my podcast or search up Against the Current, The Chosen on your local listening platform, so you can hear my full thoughts for yourself and engage more with me there. That's where I give all of my reviews, not just the highlights or the fun stuff, everything. Go ahead and listen to my podcast, link down below in the description.
A sundial.
Thomas.
And let's talk about the sundial. So Thomas and Ramah in episode 1 of season 4 found a loophole in the Jewish culture where they could get married without the specific approval of Ramah's father, Kavni, where Thomas chooses a representative and Ramah chooses a representative, and Thomas just has to give her a peace offering and a gift for them to share to signify that they are betrothed. and Thomas chooses to give her a sundial. In storytelling, for me, it's easy to assume that everything has a meaning. This was all intricately put together, and especially in The Chosen, where everything is so intricately planned out, so meticulously put in place, and so well thought out, that this sundial means something. It's a really cool way to signify that Ramah's time is running out. The sundial, obviously, was at a time when people didn't have watches, so that was the way that these people told what time it was. And Thomas giving Ramah a sundial is a really cool way to signify her clock is ticking, and this is all part of God's perfect plan where we are not sure about how he's outside of time. Peter says that a day to the Lord is as 1,000 days, and his perception of time is much different than ours. He's outside of it. Everything is working according to his perfect will. And Ramah's death, spoiler alert, is just a perfect example of how his plan is perfect and how he's always working everything together for good for those who love him. And we'll see how this all continues. We haven't seen the conclusion to the storyline. We don't know where it's going, but this is just the perfect way to signify, Ramah's ticking clock, how her time is running out. And hey, before I unveil my fifth and final detail about The Chosen Season 4, Episode 3, I would really help me out if you would subscribe to Against the Current of The Chosen podcast to stay updated on every little bit of Chosen news, everything that's happening with The Chosen, what they're doing next, what's happening, and everything, and just really just fun stuff that we're talking about, reviews, discussions, breakdowns, all of that great stuff. You can stay updated on that right here by subscribing and turning on notifications. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. But finally, we got to talk about the biggest and most surprising thing that The Chosen has ever done. Ramah's death. Oh boy, I really, really love that The Chosen did this. Not in a weird way. I immediately heard how it sounded as soon as the words came out of my mouth. It's kind of weird. I don't love seeing people die, but I love that The Chosen did this because this is a great storytelling, tool, device. I love it. It's really, really cool. And I love the fact that all of us were so devastated. That shows just how good the show is and how invested all of us are. When a movie can make me cry or feel something, like really feel big emotions and big things, that's just proof that it's really, really good and it's done its job. That's what they do best. The storytelling is, getting you enthralled and immersed into a story and following characters that you care about and you want to see succeed and that you care about when they fail or when they experience hardship. So it's really, really cool, and the fact that we're all feeling this way is a good thing, trust me. But obviously this story does not come from the Bible at all, but fun fact, it has been planned since Season 1. This storyline was always meant to be. And again, we don't know where it's going, we don't know what The Chosen has planned for this Thomas Ramah storyline, but in this season, we see Thomas dealing with the death of Ramah, and then watching Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead, which is not a spoiler. I mean, that's what we're going to see at the end of this season. That's the season finale. And he's really struggling with that because this is a question that we all ask in our everyday life. Because yes, God allows suffering every day. I know people, and I'm sure you know people close to you that have died. And we don't know why God does that. We don't know why he allows that to happen. So it's really an interesting question that The Chosen poses in here. And I'm so glad that they tackled this idea wholeheartedly and that they decided to wrestle with this. Why does God allow suffering? Why does God allow people to die? It really is really, really cool because Thomas is standing there with Jesus, pleading with him, begging him to raise Ramah or help her somehow. And Jesus says, it's not her time. It's not her time to die. That's not what he was referring to. He was referring to, it's not her time to be resurrected. She'll be resurrected when all of us are resurrected, when Jesus comes again and takes us all to live with him eternally forever. So, I'm glad that everyone finally got to see this. It's because it's pretty intense. And next episode, the aftermath is even more intense, let me tell you. So, yes, very sad, very troubling, yes, but first of all, it's just a TV show, even though it feels like real life and it keeps me up every night. It is, entertainment, and it's just great entertainment. It really is cool. When you get a Bible show, something that the whole story is written out for us, and we already know everything that's going to happen pretty much, to have a big twist like that where everyone was like, I did not see that coming. I was like, they wouldn't do it. They won't do it. They don't have the guts. And they did. They do have the guts. So, Public apology. I apologize to Dallas, Ryan, and Tyler. They do have the guts to pull something off like this that makes us all go, whoa. And I do want to, emphasize that this is the only way. This had to happen. If Jesus keeps going out there and doing sermons like that, just a pure storytelling aspect, when he's just out there, preaching like this, and everybody's getting so mad, and Quintus is like, "Meh, like I don't like this Jesus guy. He's really causing a lot of trouble for me." For him to just as a storytelling aspect, we don't feel the weight of Quintus and his, just ironclad fist that he has over the Jewish people as being a Roman officer. Like, if he just is getting upset and not doing anything about it, that makes him kind of a weak villain, and we don't really buy into the fact that he poses a threat or that the Romans pose any kind of threat, right? They're like, oh, the Jews are afraid of them, but they don't do anything. So the fact that we have this extra biblical character who dies and is killed by Quintus because he is upset with Jesus' ministry is just really a good storytelling way, and it raises the stakes. It shows us that, yep, in the first century, people died a lot, and they were killed a lot. So it is really cool, and it is the only way, and I'm glad that The Chosen decided to tackle this. It's a great storyline, and it's really interesting stuff. So let me know what you think about it. What did you think of this storyline? Are you one of those people who got turned off by it? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And I want to say again, remember, The Chosen has kind of evolved. In Season 1 and kind of in Season 2 as well, The Chosen was literally just, let's tell the stories of the Bible and add stuff in to show why certain things happened. But when we're at the point where we are in Season 4, it's kind of evolved past just adding context or cultural context or historical context to certain moments. It's more about tackling, philosophical and spiritual questions about why do things in the Christian life happen, and what does following Jesus practically look like, and showing how the struggles that we face today as Christians in the modern world are the same exact struggles that the people of first century Jerusalem likely faced as they were walking with Jesus. So if you keep that in mind and that perspective, that really helps you kind of, deal with this. Like, The Chosen is not saying that this happened. Dallas says it probably likely didn't. And if it did, don't you think we would have heard about it in the Gospels? But it's more of just showing, hey, we're using our creative artistic license to say, let's tackle these important topics and let's discuss these things and let's wrestle them and think about them. So it really is cool, and it gets us thinking about this stuff, I love thinking about this kind of thing. So there you have it. There's 5 things you might have missed in The Chosen Season 4, Episode 3, Moon to Blood. This episode, it was intense, man. But there were some cool moments, rather great Bible moments, and I'm really excited to see where all of this leads next episode. Next episode's much happier, I promise, and where it leads the rest of the season. All this stuff is super duper exciting. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment down below. I just also want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into my first live stream the other day. That was really, really, stressful for me, but it went really smoothly. It went really well. So thank you to those of you who showed up for that. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Binge Jesus.